Hey everyone, my name is Michael Paolicelli and I am here to talk to you about Project Fi, which is the Google service I selected for our video presentation. Now, the really cool thing about Project Fi is that it's a cellular service provided by Google, which works off of T-Mobile and AT&T towers to provide you with the best possible service. The way it works is that it works off of those providers' towers with AT&T and T-Mobile. Whichever one is more powerful in the area is the one that you're going to get. So let's say they're provided whatever area that you're in, both of them are there, you get the strongest of the two, which is really cool. But if one isn't present, you just get the service of whichever one is available, which is also pretty cool. Now, what's really awesome about it is the plans. They are very simple, they're very basic, easy to understand. It's a baseline of $20 a month for unlimited talk and text, and you can actually just go with that. You don't need to pick a data plan if you don't want to. However, you're buying a smartphone, chances are you're going to want data. Now, the way it works is that it's a gigabyte for $10 a month, and it increases. So let's say you want 2 gigabytes, it's $20 a month, and so forth. Comparatively, which I'll get into later, it's fairly similar, but there are savings in certain areas and some other benefits, which is what I'm going to get into next. So, the benefits of Google Fi. The baseline, as I mentioned before, is $20 a month for unlimited talk and text. Now, they say that there aren't overage penalties, but it's very similar to the way Verizon and AT&T work, and some other providers as well, is you pay $10 for your overage fees. So, basically, let's say you have a plan for 5 gigabytes a month. That's $50 a month, but let's say you go to 5.5. You just pay an extra $10 for it. Now, that does kind of seem drastic. It's not too bad though, especially if you're responsible with your data. Now, the really cool thing is, let's say you have a 10 gigabyte plan and you only use 8. You actually get reimbursed $20 back onto your account, which you could put forth to next month, or you just get it back, which is really cool. So they actually have reimbursement plans with their plans to save you money if you haven't used what you paid for, which is unheard of with other service providers. With Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, even T-Mobile, if you pay for it, you paid for it. Even if you use half of it, that money is now theirs. So Google's really doing a service for everyone to do that. Coverage is also fairly good. Once again, you're relying on AT&T and T-Mobile to have really good service in their areas, which is quite probable nowadays because they've bought Spectrum. Now, to sum up what Spectrum is basically bandwidth allocation for cellular devices. And I don't want to get into it too much because I could probably do a whole nother video based on Spectrum alone. But kind of think of it like different versions of Wi-Fi. There's dual band, so there's 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. Spectrum is measured in megahertz, so it's very similar, and there's many different ranges. Some opportunities that they have are the coverage isn't exactly stacking up to someone like Verizon. Verizon, as they claim, has the best coverage across the country, which as a Verizon user myself, I can agree with. However, using both AT&T and T-Mobile as your provider, as a partner for Google Fi, you're really getting some strong benefits out of it because it works off of both. So kind of think of like a Venn diagram. You are limited to the devices that Google provides, and it's only their devices. So the Google Nexus is basically their only lineup that they have that's available for Google Project Fi, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Google devices have been notoriously reliable, starting with the Samsung Galaxy Nexus. That was one of the first that really started off well. I actually had one, and it did very well on the market and so forth, all the way up to the Nexus 6P, and I think it was the 5X is the other device. I know someone else is talking about those devices though, so I'll leave it to them. Okay, so now what we're going to talk about are the comparisons in pricing. So what's nice is I have this visual right here, which compares Project Fi to other carriers like Republic Wireless, Straight Talk, Ting, Sprint, T-Mobile, and Verizon Wireless. Now, out of all those other competitors, Verizon Wireless on this chart, which is unfortunately the best one that I can find, is the only one that's compared in contract price. Now, when you compare it that way, you're seeing a ton of savings with Project Fi according to these figures. Verizon also isn't listed here with their device charge that they have on their lines. Project Fi, they don't charge you anything for the device. They're already doing that by selling you a Google Nexus device, so I don't see the reason why that's not provided here. But Verizon actually charges a $40 device fee for your smartphone on your line. Then you add the data on top of that. So the 1 gigabyte plan here is actually $110. Then the 3 gigabyte plan is going to be $130, and then the 5 gigabyte plan is going to be $150. So when you compare it that way, to be completely fair, you're seeing a lot of savings when you go with Project Fi. So a lot of people are asking what the future of Project Fi is. So as far as I could tell, there wasn't really a whole lot out there in terms of what the future plans of Google's Project Fi is. They're very selective on what they put out there, which is good on Google, so then their competition doesn't have the drop on them. So some things I found, though, which are mostly speculation, are cable companies might be interested in going for Project Fi as a partner. The reason why is because a cable company would like to provide a blanket coverage for their customers. So if they're capable of providing a cellular service as opposed to a inline phone service through Cablevision, Time Warner, and other service providers out there, having a cellular option will alleviate those customers that don't want a house phone but want some sort of phone plan added into their cable service to have it accumulated as a package. So that could be very beneficial for Google and for the cable companies out there that do want to convert from landlines to wireless. Now, another thing that a lot of companies are trying to move to is voice over LTE. That is a huge advantage that Google Project Fi is looking to take advantage of. What voice over LTE is, or VoLTE for short, is it's essentially using your data for your phone calls. This increases the quality of the phone call drastically. This is beneficial because having that call quality enhancement to where it basically sounds like you're right next to the person instead of on a very choppy and very distorted phone call is going to be progression for cellular service. This will also encourage other providers to increase their quality and to provide these kind of services, which is Google's main objective with providing Google Project Fi. They're not really competing with these other service providers, which is why they didn't get their own towers and are working off of AT&T and T-Mobile. They are trying to push other providers to provide better prices and to provide better service for their customers, which has been a huge issue in recent years. Now, some of my personal thoughts on the future of Project Fi, I think they may potentially team up with more providers in the future. Maybe they would like to get some coverage with Verizon to support those customers as well that really do rely on their services, as they are self-stated and self-acclaimed to be the best provider in the United States. Another thing is they may support third-party devices in the future. That is a very possible thing if their project does turn into a full-blown adventure for Google. They will most likely want to bring on other Google devices, and who knows, perhaps maybe an iPhone option or all iPhones will be supported at some point in the future. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope this was very informative, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask, or definitely do your own research on it if you're looking to switch providers. If you've been sick and tired of Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, whoever you use, definitely look into Project Fi, especially if you already have a Google Nexus device. It could save you a lot of money in the future. Well, everybody, take care.